He's going to be on all those rides at in Orlando with his kids. He's going to be sick. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. The biggest winner in this. No, we're super excited. I mean, I'm proud of our football team. You know, to go from where we were unranked, you know, we didn't have bowl prep. We didn't get really the way our schedule set up this year. You know, from spring break to our class schedule in July, with they didn't get a chance to go home. It was a long year for our guys, and you know they persevered. We had a long schedule, a tough schedule. Finished our last 6 games with, you know, 4, you know, nationally ranked teams, and then, you know, Wake Forest is a pretty darn good football team in Navy. So, you know, just really proud of our football team to be rewarded to play in the Citrus Bowl. You know, one of the older, most prestigious games on New Year's Day on national television. We're really super excited. And then to play LSU, you know, another nationally ranked team. That'll give us our 7th nationally ranked team to play on this schedule. You don't need much motivation for your football team. Our guys are pretty motivated. They know, you know, what's in front of them in terms of playing LSU. So, again, really proud of our staff, our players, and, you know, to be put in this position on New Year's Day. Really excited for the accomplishment of our football team. So, questions that pertain to that? We usually start over here.
Brian, I'm not going to ask you to go through the whole schedule, but when will you plan to get down to Orlando, and how many practices do you think you'll be able to get in total before the bowl? Well,
Chad Klunder and Jason, our assistant ops, they'll get down there Tuesday and do the site visit. We'll kind of decide logistically on the high school and, you know, where we'll practice. We already have the hotel set in terms of, you know, the where we'll be, which is the same hotel we were for the old Camping World, which was the Russell Athletic back in 2011. So there's some familiar logistics for us, so that'll get accomplished. We'll get 15 total. You know, the first practice will be Saturday after the Echoes. We'll go Saturday and Sunday. Then we'll navigate through finals and begin with our scouting report the following week. Probably get about, you know, 2 weeks of LSU. So try to duplicate a week of LSU up here before we break and send our players home on the 22nd. We'll send them home on the 22nd. So they'll fly out of here on the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th, and then they'll have to report to the bowl site on the 26th. So from our perspective, you know, it's great that we can get some work in here and then get a break for our players during Christmas so they can spend Christmas home with the family and then meet back up at the bowl site. So it really, you know, playing on New Year's Day really is good for our football team.
Brian, when Jalen Smith had his injury in the Fiesta Bowl a couple years ago, there was a thought that people would start to skip bowl games because of their NFL future. Do you have anybody that would fall into that category this bowl cycle?
Nobody has approached me about it. I met with all my captains today, and none of them gave me any indication that that would be the case. But you know, again, you know, we'll deal with any individual situations if they arise. But nobody has approached me about it. Again, I met with the captains today and asked if that was the case, and that wasn't the case today. So, but we'll proceed as if everybody's going to play, and if there are any individual cases that need to be dealt with, we'll support our players 100%.
And what do you feel like you can accomplish with Brandon in terms of getting him in a good place for this bowl game against a really good pass defense?
Very good pass defense. You know, you're going to get man. Dave Arenda's a very good defensive coordinator, and you know, it's timing. It's you know, really about you know, getting into a consistency of rhythm and throwing the ball on time, and we're going to have to, you know, go to work on that over the next couple of weeks and get into, you know, some form of consistency in the passing game that allows us, you know, a little bit more success in throwing the football. You know, I know Brandon will do whatever's necessary to get to that end.
Coach, when you look at kind of these standalone bowl games, meaning like non-playoff games, do you kind of view this as sort of a cap on this season, a sort of building block for next season, or a little bit of both?
I think it's more about this season, really. I think when you really get down to it, you get a few days where you can get some of the younger players a glimpse towards next year. But I think it's a cap on this season. You know, it's a quest to be special in a sense of getting to 10 wins, and that's really going to be on the backs of the guys that got you to where you are. So if you were to break it up in terms of how the pie would look, you know, I still think this is about you know, getting your team, you know, ready and prepared, you know, for, you know, a 13th game. Along the way, if you can accomplish a couple of other things and get a glimpse of some other players that haven't gotten a lot of work, you certainly do that, but you don't have a ton of time to do that either.
When you look at this LSU team, how much work have you guys had a chance to kind of get to look at them other than just superficial look at them?
I really haven't had much, but I know LSU. I know the type of athlete that they, you know, have on their football team. You know, Darren Geis is you know, another version of Leonard Fournette in the sense that power, speed. He's not obviously he's big, but has the power, speed. Their front seven is going to look like a Georgia SEC team. I mean, this is going to be an SEC Georgia type football team. I think their scheme is a little bit different than when we played them in 14 in terms of what they do offensively. I think Matt Canada has opened up their offense a little bit. So I think you'll see that as being a little bit different than maybe what we saw in 14. But I think you're going to see, you know, the kind of athletes that we expect to see that we saw in 14.
When you look at your schedule from this season, you've got obviously Georgia early in the year as an SEC team, Michigan State, Stanford, teams like that. Do you feel like your team has gone through enough experiences to where they can kind of be prepared for the physicality that LSU is going to
Oh, yeah, physicality won't be an issue for us. We've got to take care of the football. The games that we struggled, we didn't take care of the football. You know, we were ahead in the fourth quarter in the two of the losses, you know, against Georgia and Stanford. So not really concerned about that. It's about being clean and efficient and taking care of the football. You know, physicality is the least of my concerns when it comes to our football team.
When you look at these bowl proceedings, obviously you're not going to spend 15 practices going through, you know, preparation for what LSU is going to throw at you offensively and defensively. Is this an opportunity kind of, it seemed like late in the year at some spots, maybe you're kind of getting away from the fundamentals that had put you in a position to be 8-1 and talking about the playoffs. Do you kind of do a sort of let's get back to basics thing, or is it, I mean, what do those early practices really focus on?
You know, I think you look at, you know, first of all, you know, there's a layoff, and you're also trying to balance that layoff with players that are, their focus is their final exams, right? So, you know, they're distracted in a sense. So you don't want to lay too much on them, but you want to get them in football-related movements. So you're right in a sense is that you do want to focus on skill development, but, you know, you're not really saying, all right, let's, you know, let's get and run, you know, schemes here that we were more successful early in the year than later in the year. I think you're just trying to get the rust off your team that's going to have a 2-week layoff. So skill development will be important early on. Tackling will be important. So working tackling drills. So it'll be more fundamental work, but I don't think it'll have an eye towards what did you do well versus what did you do not so well later.
I've been kind of wondering this for a while, and just kind of look at preparation for a team. I thought this might be a good time to ask it since you don't have a game coming up in a few days. When you talk about preparation for a team, obviously the coaches are focusing on that upcoming game, and then the players start on Monday, Tuesday, getting ready for that week. What is your advanced scouting situation like? Like, what's sort of the framework for what that looks like? So, and obviously you'll have a lot of that going on here over the next couple of weeks, but what does that look like for you guys? Who's in charge of that? Like, how do they prepare things for coaches, or do coaches still do this? So I know it's changed a lot really since you first got here.
Yeah, Bill Reese is our advanced scout. He does an evaluation of the entire team that we play, and we have a rating scale of every player. Bill will meet with me, the coordinators, and then we'll have a meeting together with the coordinators to go over every player that we're going against, first line, second line, offense, defense, and special teams. So we'll have a full detailed advanced scouting report on our opposition, and that will be the front page of our scouting report. And then the inlay will be the analytics, the schemes from our graduate assistants that are doing the due diligence relative to film breakdown. So it's a collaborative work that's done first with advanced scouting on personnel, and then film breakdown of tendencies and schemes, and that gets us our full scouting report.
Now, does that kind of happen? So, like, when you're getting ready to play Navy, for example, your coaches are obviously focused on Navy. Is that week, is your advanced scouting department kind of focusing on that next opponent, or does it kind of happen the weekend after you play somebody?
Well, Bill would have already been working on the next week opponent. We shift gears on Thursday. So Thursday, we close the book on the in-week opponent, and our GAs are now working, and our analysts are working on the next week's opponent. So, we're usually 48 hours before the next opponent, so we're a couple of days ahead of it, putting that work together.
Brian, up the middle, what were your memories of the last time you guys played LSU, and how important that game was springboarding you into the next year?
Well, what I recall in the 2014 season, we started out undefeated, and then we had a rash of injuries. Finished poorly in a sense that, we lost some close games at home. Lost a game to Northwestern in Louisville where we had the game won. So we really had to bring our guys back from a confidence standpoint. I remember, vividly talking to them about that they were a better football team than how we finished, and to bring that confidence to the LSU game. I thought they played with a lot of confidence in that game. And consequently, we made some changes, as you know, at the quarterback position, starting Malik Zaire, and focused on playing with confidence and physicality, and by doing so, we were able to, get the game into the fourth quarter, and we had the game-winning field goal. So, confidence, physicality, a lot of the things that we kind of relied on this year were kind of the salient points in that game in 14.
Did that help a lot going into the next season?
Oh, that victory helped with confidence going to the 15. There's no question. The team changed a little bit, as you know, because we changed who the quarterback was, but because Malik got injured. But I think that confidence level certainly was definitely momentum going into 15.
So do you think that can also be in play this time around? Obviously, you don't have the injuries, but obviously you didn't win the games you wanted to down the stretch here. Yeah,
I mean, I don't know that this season's a different season than that one. That one was clearly different in the sense that we lost some games that were difficult ones. The dynamics were different. That team was different. This team has changed so much from last year to this year that it will make it a special season to win 10 games, but it's a really good change from where we were that we'll be able to build off of this season no matter what happens.
And then finally for me, just you said at the beginning you're proud of your team to get to this point, to be at 9-3. Obviously, big picture, that makes a lot of sense based on where you were. I was just where you were from a month ago, however. Has this been a really disappointing path to get to this point the last month? Do you have to overcome that at all with the way you guys played down the stretch?
No, because, I mean, I think if you really look at it, you know, we were up 41-16 to Wake Forest, playing really well. Navy's a tough opponent no matter which way you look at it. We had to go all the way across the country to play a really good Stanford team, and had it in the fourth quarter, turned the ball over. If you really look at it, you know, this football team, you know, played really hard. We probably got a little tired at the end with the 6 weeks in a row of really tough quality competition, and it was a long year for our football team, starting back in January. So I feel really good about what they accomplished. I don't think there's anything disappointing other than the fact that everybody has higher goals. We wish we didn't turn the football over late and made a couple of plays on defense. Other than that, I don't think that there's any narrative that would let me use the word disappointing.
Brian, with the 15 practices, I don't think you've always done that.
No, we've been closer to 13. It's just that starting on Saturday, going Saturday and Sunday allows us a couple more, and then we can squeeze a couple in around exams. It's going to give us a chance to get to 15, yeah.
And in terms of NFL feedback, underclassmen, have guys submitted that yet? Have they come to you and expressed a desire to do that?
Yeah, I've had conversations with guys that, you know, would like to be evaluated. I've done that. I generally keep that information, you know, amongst ourselves until after we get that information.
Okay, the return evaluations.
It doesn't usually come back until it's late.
You're down there, I think, at the bowl game.
Yeah, it's generally right around then. After Christmas, I know that it gets late.
In the past, you've told us who have requested the information. Are you?
Yeah, I'm not gonna provide that information because I'm not sure that the players want that information released.
And in terms of Matt Canada, when you were looking to redo your staff last offseason, and you're sort of figuring, okay, where can I go with this and that, was he a guy that you considered? What do you like about?
Yeah, I liked Matt Canada. I think we. You know, he was being hotly contested, you know, so it was, you know, wasn't, you know, somebody that we felt like at that time was going to be the right fit for us. But I really respected the work he's done all the way back to Indiana, Wisconsin. He would have been the right fit in terms of what we were looking for offensively, but he was deeply negotiating, you know, at LSU and kind of knew that. So that wasn't a path that we were going to go down.
I think you did a lot of heavy lifting last week and probably this week with recruiting and home visits. I think by the time you get practicing again, that will die down. But how has the earlier signing date maybe changed your approach as the head coach between now and late December? It's
busier now. I think what it'll do is it'll allow us to focus on 19s a little bit more in January than we've had in the past. You know, we expect that if our players are committed, they'll sign in December. If they're not committed, they won't. So, you know, our response has been really good in terms of guys signing in December. So if they're committed, they'll sign in December, which, you know, frees up, you know, that time that I'm normally on the road in January chasing these guys down for February signing to really focus on 19s and then the remaining spots that we have left. So it's busier now, but I think it's worth it because it allows us to be ahead of the game as we move through January.
I mean, is your perspective basically if you don't sign in December, then
you're not committed?
Half committed, or not even?
No, you're not committed. If you don't sign in December, you're not committed. Okay. We'll have to keep recruiting you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Hey, Brian, I know you haven't had a chance to look at LSU, but you do know a little bit about their quarterback, don't you?
I do.
What do you recall about Danny Etling?
You know,
he's probably a much different quarterback today than he was then.
He is a different quarterback. I mean, I only got a chance to see him a little bit on some clips, but I like the way they're moving him around. He doesn't stay in the pocket. He's much more athletic than people have ever, you know, kind of credited for him. But I thought he's done a really nice job this year. I'll get a chance to see more of him. I liked him coming out. I think he's a really good quarterback.
You mentioned the injuries in 2014 and maybe getting a little worn down here this past November. Have you had a conversation?
And let me just, if I could, clarify that. I don't think we were worn down physically. I think we were worn down emotionally and mentally.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's what was leading into my next question, whether you've had or will have a conversation with Matt Bayless as it pertains to that?
Yeah.
Or do you not think that that's what's at
No,
issue?
I think we were really good. We were continuing to make strides physically. There was no questions about where we were physically as a football team. We were emotionally and mentally, we had a long year. And I remember addressing the team before the Monday of the Stanford week with so much on the line and you know, a 10th win and a New Year's Six, and it looked like they were in biology class. You know, they were staring at me like, really? You know, there was no juice, there was no excitement, and they were tired. They were tired mentally, and it's a long year, and I've got to do a better job of pacing that out for them.
That's what I was going to ask you also, that what can you do to alleviate some of that mental burden on them?
Yeah, you know, obviously those are the things that you get a chance when you're on a flight and you're on a plane. You start thinking about what things that you can do better as a head coach, and you know, I think there's some things that you know, I can help them with in terms of our leaders and our captains to take that on themselves, because it can't come from us. You know, they've got to be able to do it. You know, how we can keep them energized emotionally and mentally, you know, during the long stretch of games that we had, those 6 games.
Does it require lightening the load a little bit?
I think all of those are definitely things that had been on my mind. And again, you know, playing 4 quarters against Navy, you know, before you go out to the West Coast, you know, those are all taxing mentally as well, because of, you know, it's not, I thought physically we did fine. It's just that requires an attention to detail for 4 quarters, and you're going to come back the next week, fly across the country. That's a lot. And you know, sometimes you just say, well, maybe if you schedule better on the back end, you'd be a little bit fresher. So I can't control that. The games are already scheduled. But I have to look at ways in our program where we can keep our guys fresher.
I know you said right up until the end of the season that Josh Adams was 100%, but how much will he benefit with the time off and the extra preparation?
I think he'll benefit greatly. There's no question.
Thoughts on the 4 teams chosen for the playoffs?
You know, I didn't, you know, I took myself off the college, the USA Today for that reason. You know, it's really hard because I don't watch them. You know, I think the conversation was between Ohio State and Alabama, I believe. I couldn't tell you the difference between the two. I think they're both really, really good football teams. But to ask me, you know, who's 4, who's 5, Wisconsin was really good too. I thought USC, Auburn beat, I think, 2 of the teams in the top 4, if I don't recall. Those are the questions that I really couldn't answer because I don't watch them. You know, they seem to be, I think the best way is maybe we should have, you know, 64 teams or 32. I mean, then there wouldn't be any questions, right, if we had 32?
You want to be on that committee when you retire from coaching? 32
would be great because I think we'd be in, or 16, right? 16 would be the way to go. I'm up for 16, or at least 14.
Thanks.
All right, thanks.